I stared at the $5,000 fine in my hand, my mouth hanging open. HOA President Karen Henderson stood there with a triumphant smile, clipboard in hand like a weapon. Not because of the money. After 25 years of pulling wisdom teeth, I had seen things that hurt way more, but because of the reason. Walking dog without muzzle on your own private property. That's right, the HOA just fined me for walking Duke, my wheezing old golden retriever, on the 50-acre ranch. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below because this story will prove. Never mess with a dentist. We're trained to extract problems right down to the root. And Karen had no idea the entire neighborhood was about to lose their homes because of me. My name is Dr. Benjamin Harper, though most folks just called me Doc Ben. I had recently sold my dental practice in Dallas after 25 years of fixing smiles and moved to Pine Ridge Ranch, hoping to find some peace. The $50 million from selling Gentle Dental Care and its brand seemed like more than enough to start fresh. I'd checked the contract 3 times with 3 different lawyers before buying the ranch, was clearly marked as not under Pine Ridge HOA management. Yet here I was, first day on my own land, getting fined by someone who looked like she'd stepped out of a pharmaceutical commercial, all fake smiles and dead eyes. "Oh, Dr. Harper?" the woman said, her unnaturally white teeth gleaming in the morning sun. "Margaret Thornton." I recognized her immediately as a patient from 10 years ago. Her smile twitched and I noticed the telltale signs of nerve pain from cheap implants. "I heard you'd moved in." There was something in her eyes, a satisfaction that made my skin crawl. She stood there in her pristine white blazer, hand trembling slightly as she held the fine. I could see the bruising on her inner wrist, injection sites, probably from heavy painkillers. This wasn't the same woman who'd sat in my chair a decade ago. "Hello, Mrs. Thornton. Your teeth look different." I kept my voice professional, but I could see her face twitch at the observation. She quickly raised her hand to cover her mouth, a defensive gesture I'd seen thousands of times from patients in pain. "I'm here in my capacity as HOA president. You're violating Regulation 247B. Dogs must wear muzzles. Leashes, shorter than 4 feet. Duke sat quietly beside me, his gray muzzle and cloudy eyes showing his age. At 10 years old, with a heart condition, he could barely manage our slow morning walks, let alone pose a threat to anyone. I pulled out my purchase contract, the paper crisp in the morning air. "I bought this land with clear stipulations that it's not under HOA management. This is an independent ranch, confirmed by 3 separate attorneys." Robert Sullivan, the HOA lawyer, stepped out of the black BMW with a smirk that made me want to check my wallet. "Wrong, doctor. According to new legislation passed last week, all properties within a 2-mile radius of Pine Ridge Center fall under HOA jurisdiction." He had the kind of smile that probably charged by the minute. New legislation? When exactly? My dental training had taught me to pay attention to details, and something about this timeline felt off. HOA rule changes required 30 days of public notice. I'd done my homework. "Last week, right after you signed your purchase agreement." Margaret's smile turned triumphant, but I noticed her jaw clenching. But I noticed her fast-tracked it for community safety. The way she said it, the way Sullivan kept checking his watch, the small AMI logo on the corner of the fine, none of this was random. This was a trap, and I'd walked right into it. As Margaret handed me the fine, her hand shook more violently, not from age, from the cocktail of painkillers coursing through her system. I'd seen it too many times in patients who'd undergone botched dental work. "Still in pain, I see? I warned you about attempting implants with type 4 bone loss." Her face contorted with rage. "Shut up, you refused me, said I wasn't a good candidate. You humiliated me in front of your entire waiting room." Her voice cracked, revealing years of pent-up fury. "I was protecting your health, Mrs. Thornton. Your jawbone couldn't support. You made me go somewhere else. And now," she touched her cheek, her voice trembling with barely contained rage, "now I have to live with this for the rest of my life." That evening, I sat in my home office, Duke's head resting on my feet as I reviewed old patient files. I'd kept digital copies of everything, a habit that now seemed prescient. Margaret Thornton's x-rays from 10 years ago showed severe bone deterioration, far too advanced for safe implants. I'd refused the procedure based on medical ethics, not personal judgment, but there in the margins, my assistant's handwritten note. "Patient screaming, threatening to destroy Dr. Harper. Security called." I looked down at Duke, running my hand through his still soft fur despite his age. "Emily always said no good deed goes unpunished, boy. But we still do the right thing, don't we?" Duke's tail wagged weakly, and I wondered what Emily would think of all this. She'd been gone 2 years now, but her voice still guided me. My phone buzzed, breaking the melancholy. Maria Rodriguez, my former dental assistant, sounded panicked. "Dr. Harper, thank God you're here. They just fined me $8,000 because my son was playing basketball in our own driveway. This is the 5th time this month." I sat up straight, Duke lifting his head at my sudden movement. "Maria? Why are you living here?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "It's a long story, Doc, but you need to know. Margaret is targeting everyone who ever worked with you. She calls it the cleansing campaign. And Dr. Harper, she's not working alone." I looked out my window at the neighboring houses. Maria's house across the way was plastered with violation notices. Sam Thompson's house next door had even more, but the Morrison mansion, owned by a wealthy white family, stood pristine and untouched. "Maria, call everyone who used to work at the clinic. Tomorrow night, meeting at my house. Looks like we have a cavity that needs extracting, and it's deeper than I thought." 15 people crowded into my living room the next evening, each face carrying the weight of HOA harassment. They'd all worked at Gentle Dental Care at some point, and now they all lived in Pine Ridge, which I was beginning to realize wasn't a coincidence. Duke moved between them, his old body still trying to comfort everyone despite his arthritis. "5,000 for growing mint in my garden." They said it wasn't an approved plant species. Mr. Wilson, my former accountant, shook his head in disbelief. His usually steady hands trembled as he showed me the stack of fines. Jennifer, who'd been my best dental assistant for 5 years, was crying. 10,000 because my daughter's bike was on the porch for 2 hours. 2 hours! She's 7 years old. The stories kept coming, each more ridiculous than the last, each carrying that strange AMI logo I'd noticed on my own fine. Sam Thompson, a retired judge who'd moved in next door, handed me a thick folder that looked like it had been assembled by someone expecting war. I've been researching this HOA for 2 years, ever since they tried to fine me for sitting on my own porch after 9 p.m. This isn't just harassment, it's systematic targeting. The data made my dentist brain light up. Pattern recognition was crucial in diagnostics, and the pattern here was crystal clear. 89% of heavy fines went to minorities or immigrants. 95% of those had connections to me or my clinic. Total fines collected over 3 years exceeded $3.2 million, and 23 families had been forced to sell and leave. This isn't random harassment, Sam concluded, his judge's mind seeing what mine was beginning to grasp. This is ethnic cleansing with paperwork. And that AMI logo, I've seen it before on documents from other HOAs across the state. The next morning brought 4 more fines to my doorstep, delivered personally by Robert Sullivan with a smile that would make a shark jealous. 2,000 for excessive dog barking, counted as barking apparently. 3,000 for non-approved door color shade. It was the same brown it had always been. 4,000 for offensive cooking odors. I'd made pho, my late wife Emily's recipe. 5,000 for vehicle parked 2.5 inches off center, measured, apparently with surgical precision. $14,000 in one morning. "You could always move. Doctor would be easier for everyone," Sullivan said. But I noticed him glancing at his watch repeatedly, like he was waiting for something. Duke growled softly, the first time I'd heard him make any aggressive sound in years. That afternoon, Kevin Brown knocked on my door. I'd given him free dental care when he was 19 and broke, a brilliant kid who dropped out of law school after 2 years to pursue computer security. Now he was one of the top white hat hackers in Texas. "Doc, I did a security audit on the HOA system, completely legal. They actually hired my firm last year and never revoked access." He winked, fingers already flying across his laptop keyboard. "You're not going to believe what I found." The screen filled with emails, spreadsheets, and financial documents that made my blood run cold. Emails between Margaret and Sullivan discussing Operation Dental Cleanup, detailed spreadsheets tracking every person who'd ever worked with me, mysterious encrypted emails from something called Association Management Inc., and most importantly, buried in the HOA bylaws from 1987, a clause that might be our salvation. Any member owning more than 51% of the total HOA area has veto power over all decisions, Kevin read, his law school training still evident. Your ranch is already 50 acres out of 160 total. If you could acquire just a bit more, my mind raced with possibilities. This was like finding the nerve in a seemingly dead tooth, unexpected but game-changing. There are 8 lots currently for sale, Kevin continued, pulling up real estate listings. All from families the HOA drove to bankruptcy if you bought them. The math was simple. 50 acres plus 35 more would give me 85 acres out of 160, or 53.1%. Total control. I dug through my old patient files that night, Duke sleeping fitfully beside me. The poison attempt had aged him visibly. I found Margaret Thornton's complete record from 2014, diagnosis of stage 4 bone loss, medically unsuitable for implants, patient insistence despite medical advice, threats of lawsuit when refused treatment, but it was the final note that made everything click. Patient declared, "I'll make you regret humiliating me, recommend psychiatric evaluation for unstable behavior." I looked at the x-rays again, my professional eye catching what I'd missed before. The bone loss pattern was consistent with long-term methamphetamine use. The pieces were falling into place. I gathered my core team, Sam Thompson for legal guidance, his years on the bench invaluable, Maria Rodriguez for personnel coordination, her network in the Hispanic community extensive, Kevin Brown for technical support, his skills already proving crucial, and Rachel Stone, an investigative journalist who'd been documenting HOA abuses statewide. "We're going to use their own laws against them," I announced, feeling like I was planning a complex root canal. In dentistry, you need the right angle, the right pressure, and patience. Same principle applies here. The plan was elegant in its simplicity: acquire 51% ownership, gather evidence of embezzlement, expose everything publicly, then use the majority vote to dissolve the HOA entirely. "But be careful," Sam warned, his eyes serious. "Margaret's showing signs of psychological instability. Those bruises, the medication dependency, the obsessive behavior, she's a powder keg waiting to explode." That night I dreamed of Emily, seeing her perfect smile that I'd maintained for 20 years of marriage. In the dream, she was working in our garden, the one she'd started just before the cancer took her. "You're doing the right thing, Ben, but be careful. Infected teeth fight back when you try to extract them. And Margaret, she's in more pain than you realize." Duke woke me with a soft whine, and I noticed our new security cameras had been repositioned. Someone had been in our yard. The war was escalating, and I was beginning to understand this wasn't just about HOA fines. This was about revenge, pain, and something much larger than Pine Ridge. But I'd spent 25 years fighting infection, and I wasn't about to stop now. Margaret Thornton had no idea what she'd started when she handed me that first fine. She was about to learn why you never, ever mess with someone who knows how to get to the root of a problem. After the attempt to poison Duke, I wasn't playing defense anymore. I launched Operation Floss, using the meticulous skills of a dentist to investigate every detail of this corrupt HOA. "In dentistry, the smallest detail matters," I told my team as we gathered in my fortified home office. "A tiny cavity can destroy an entire tooth structure." Same principle applies to corruption. Kevin had installed a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. All perfectly legal on private property. What our cameras captured over the next few days made my blood boil. Margaret and Robert meeting at 2 a.m. in the community center, cash changing hands in golf bags like some bad mob movie, and most disturbing, an unknown man handing Margaret small vials that looked suspiciously like the poison used on Duke. Kevin's digital investigation revealed the money trail that would make any forensic accountant weep. $3.2 million in fines collected, but only $800,000 in the HOA account. The rest flows through Morrison Holdings and then vanishes. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he traced shell companies and offshore accounts. Rachel Stone, our journalist ally, had been digging into Morrison Holdings. It's a ghost company, registered to a P.O. box. But here's the kicker. It's bought 23 homes in Pine Ridge, all from families the HOA drove out, all at rock-bottom prices. The pattern was clear. Target specific residents, usually minorities or my former employees, find them into bankruptcy, force them to sell cheap, then flip the properties for massive profits. Margaret escalated her war by calling an emergency HOA meeting to pass new regulations that were obviously targeted at me. No gatherings of more than 3 non-family members, goodbye team meetings, special maintenance fee of $1,000 per month for properties over 30 acres, a direct hit at my ranch. HOA's right to surprise inspections at any time, basically permission to trespass. The desperation in these moves was palpable. "She's panicking," Sam observed, his judge's instincts sharp as ever. "Desperate people make mistakes, and Margaret's making plenty." I smiled coldly, thinking of all the infected teeth I'd extracted over the years. Just like an abscessed tooth, the more pressure it's under, the easier it is to remove. An unexpected ally emerged when Daniel Morrison called me. Not the fake Morrison Holdings, but the real Daniel Morrison, a property developer whose father had been destroyed by Margaret's HOA 10 years ago. I want to buy 8 lots in Pine Ridge, but Margaret blocks every deal. I heard you're handling her? We met at a coffee shop outside the neighborhood, away from prying eyes. Why help me? I asked, studying his face for deception. His eyes hardened. 10 years ago they fined my father into bankruptcy. He'd built his American dream from nothing, and they destroyed it in 6 months. He killed himself. I've been waiting for someone with the courage to fight back. The deal was simple but brilliant. Daniel would buy the properties through his legitimate channels, then immediately sell them to me at cost. 8 lots totaling 35 acres, giving me the magic number. Kevin's hacking revealed something that made my dentist's attention to detail pay off. A hidden folder labeled Dental Records contained the dental history of every Pine Ridge resident. Why would she need this? Sam wondered, but I saw the pattern immediately. Residents with expensive cosmetic dentistry never got fined. Those with natural teeth or basic fillings were targeted relentlessly. She's profiling people based on their teeth, Maria gasped, using dental work as a socioeconomic filter. It was twisted but brilliant. Teeth don't lie about someone's financial history. Poor kids who grew up without fluoride, immigrants who couldn't afford childhood dental care, working-class folks with amalgam fillings instead of porcelain crowns. Margaret had found a perfect proxy for discrimination that looked medical rather than racial. Rachel's investigation hit pay dirt when she found security footage from Elite Dental, the clinic where Margaret got her implants after I refused her. The video showed Margaret screaming at the dentist when complications arose, threatening lawsuits, demanding free fixes for problems caused by her weak jawbone. Exactly what I'd warned her about. But the crucial moment came at the end. This is all Harper's fault. He humiliated me. I'll destroy him and everyone connected to him. We had evidence of premeditated harassment dating back years before I even moved to Pine Ridge. But Kevin noticed something troubling. Our security cameras had been tampered with, subtle repositioning that suggested someone was watching us, watching them. We've got a mole, he concluded grimly. I gathered all 50 HOA victims in my barn, away from potential surveillance. Tomorrow, the monthly HOA meeting happens. Margaret doesn't know I own 53.1% of Pine Ridge. We end this tomorrow. The plan was surgical in its precision. Let Margaret confidently present her new rules, thinking she'd won. Then I'd drop the ownership bomb and claim my veto power. Rachel would be there with legitimate media, Kevin would live stream everything, and Sam had prepared all necessary legal documents. But that night I couldn't sleep. Duke lay beside me, still weak from the poison, but refusing to leave my side. I stared at Emily's photo on the nightstand, remembering her words about fighting injustice with intelligence, not anger. At 6 a.m., my phone exploded with calls. Daniel Morrison was panicking. Margaret just filed an emergency injunction to freeze all property transfers for 90 days. If the judge signs it this morning, our deals are dead. I had 2 hours until the HOA meeting, 1 hour until the courthouse opened. Kevin! I shouted. I need you to find something, now! Kevin's laptop screen filled with documents as he compared versions of HOA bylaws. Got it. The original and amended versions don't match. Margaret forged signatures on the voting records. But even as we celebrated this discovery, I noticed Duke growling at the window. Outside, 3 black SUVs had pulled up. Margaret wasn't going down without a fight, and I had the feeling the real battle was just beginning. The war for Pine Ridge was about to explode, and I was ready to extract every bit of corruption down to its roots. 7 a.m. found us racing to the courthouse, my hands gripping the steering wheel like I was holding a particularly difficult extraction tool. Daniel Morrison waited at the courthouse steps with his lawyer, both looking like they'd aged years overnight. Judge Wilson will review Margaret's injunction at 8, the lawyer said, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool morning. If she convinces him, we're finished. But Sam Thompson, our retired judge, stood calm and confident. Wilson's a good man. Show him evidence of Margaret's corruption, and he'll listen. I've known him 30 years. He hates bullies with paperwork. Kevin's fingers flew across his laptop, pulling up email after email. Found it. Communications between Margaret and Robert from 3 months ago, planning to block Morrison and prepare for Harper. Plus digital forensics showing the forged signatures. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, but Judge Wilson commanded it with the presence of someone who'd seen every scam in the book. Margaret sat across from us, trying to project confidence, but I could see the telltale tremors in her hands, withdrawal symptoms from whatever cocktail of painkillers she was on. Your Honor, she began, her voice shaking slightly. "We need to protect our community's stability from predatory property acquisition." But her words rang hollow, especially when Sam stood up. "Objection! We have evidence of systematic harassment, document forgery, and targeted discrimination by the plaintiff." Wilson's eyebrows rose as Kevin connected his laptop to the courtroom screen, displaying email after email, forged documents, and the crown jewel, video of Margaret's meltdown at Elite Dental. The judge watched in silence as evidence mounted like calculus on infected teeth. Margaret's fake ownership transfers, the mysterious Morrison holdings, the pattern of targeting minorities and my former employees, and crucially, the doctored HOA voting records. When the Elite Dental video played, showing Margaret screaming, "I'll destroy Harper and everyone connected to him," her face went white as porcelain veneers. "Mrs. Thornton?" Judge Wilson's voice was steady but disappointed. "Not only is your injunction denied, but I'm forwarding this evidence to the district attorney. Clear signs of fraud, forgery, and what appears to be organized racketeering." Margaret's composure cracked like a bad crown. "No!" she shrieked, and her partial denture popped out, revealing the disaster underneath. She scrambled to cover her mouth as the bailiff stepped forward. 9 a.m. at the HOA Community Center felt like walking into a dental convention where everyone hated the keynote speaker. 200 residents packed the room, and you could cut the tension with a scalpel. Margaret tried to project authority from her president's podium, but everyone could see her shaking. The whispers about the courthouse drama had already spread. "Today we'll be voting on new community guidelines," she began, her voice lacking its usual venom. "These measures will ensure the quality of life we all deserve in Pine Ridge." I let her talk, let her dig her own grave deeper with each proposed restriction. Then, when she called for the vote, I stood up. Duke, wearing a service dog vest Maria had procured, stood shakily beside me. "I object," I said, my voice carrying the same calm authority I used when explaining complex procedures to patients. As the owner of 53.1% of Pine Ridge's total area, I exercise my veto power over all HOA decisions. The room exploded like I'd hit a nerve without anesthetic. Margaret's face went from white to red to purple. "Impossible! You can't!" But Daniel Morrison stepped forward with the deed. 8 properties, legally purchased and transferred as of 7:45 this morning. Dr. Harper now owns controlling interest in Pine Ridge. I pulled out a large map pointing to each acquired parcel. Block A through H, all legally mine. According to your own bylaws from 1987, I'm now effectively the boss of Pine Ridge. Rachel Stone and her journalist colleagues began recording as Kevin live-streamed to 50,000 viewers. The whole world was watching Margaret's empire crumble. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the crowd with the same tone I used for patient education. "Over the past 3 years, this HOA has collected $3.2 million in fines. Only $800,000 went to community maintenance. Where's the rest?" The screen behind me lit up with Kevin's evidence. Bank transfers, shell companies, and photos of Margaret and Robert's luxury purchases. The crowd's murmur turned to angry shouts. Robert Sullivan tried to flee but found police officers Sam had called blocking the exits. This wasn't just a meeting anymore. It was a reckoning. Margaret's final breakdown came with theatrical flair. Desperate and cornered, she pulled a small knife from her purse. "This is all your fault, Harper. You destroyed my life. You made me ugly." The crowd gasped. Phones came out and the livestream viewer count jumped to 75,000. But Duke, my loyal 10-year-old companion who could barely walk some days, suddenly barked with a strength I hadn't heard in years. Not attacking, just one loud, authoritative bark that made Margaret freeze. "Sit down," I commanded, not to Duke but to Margaret. She collapsed into a chair, the knife clattering away as the fight left her body. The police moved in, but I raised my hand. "Wait, let her speak." What followed was the most painful extraction I'd ever witnessed. "You don't understand," Margaret sobbed, her partial denture completely out now, revealing inflamed gums. "After you refused me, I went to Elite Dental. They said they could do it, that you were just being overly cautious, but the infection started immediately. Bone necrosis, multiple surgeries, constant pain. I lost all my real teeth because I didn't listen to you." Her confession poured out like pus from an abscess. I was so angry, so humiliated. When Association Management Inc. approached me, said they'd help me get revenge and make money, I just wanted you to hurt like I was hurting. The room had gone silent, except for the sound of keyboards and camera clicks. "Mrs. Thornton," I said gently, slipping into my chairside manner, I told you your jawbone couldn't support implants because I wanted to protect you. That wasn't judgment, it was medical fact. I turned to the crowd. As majority landowner, I move to dissolve the Pine Ridge HOA immediately. All fines are void, stolen money will be returned. No more harassment, no more discrimination. Just neighbors being neighbors. All in favor? 199 hands shot up. Only Margaret sat still, sobbing into her hands. Justice felt different than I'd expected. Less like triumph, more like successfully treating a patient who'd been in pain for years. As the police led Margaret and Robert away, I made a decision that shocked everyone, including myself. But that's a story for the next chapter, because the war for Pine Ridge was far from over. 2 weeks after the HOA's dissolution, Pine Ridge felt like a tooth after a successful root canal. The infection was gone, but the healing had just begun. Margaret worked at my new free dental clinic, mopping floors and sterilizing instruments under Maria's supervision. 30 years since I've done manual labor, she said one afternoon, but her eyes had lost their hardness. Seeing those poor kids smile after you fixed their teeth, I remember wanting to help people once, before I got lost in anger and pain. I nodded, adjusting my loops before examining another patient. Dentistry isn't just about teeth, Margaret. It's about restoring smiles, confidence, hope. You're learning that now. She paused in her cleaning voice dropping low. Dr. Harper, you need to know AMI, Association Management Inc. They're dangerous. They have tentacles everywhere. The peace was short-lived. Kevin's monitoring systems detected anomalies that made my professional instincts scream danger. 5 new families moving to Pine Ridge, all with backgrounds that didn't quite add up, like veneers that looked perfect but didn't match the bite. Property values jumping 40% overnight without any market justification. Association Management Inc. quietly purchasing land all around Pine Ridge, forming a noose of control, and that AMI logo appearing on more documents, like a cavity spreading through previously healthy tissue. This isn't over, Sam warned during our security meeting. I've seen this pattern before in my courtroom. Criminal organizations don't just give up. They regroup, adapt, attack from new angles. Then came the black limousine, arriving at my door like a hearse for the living. The man who stepped out wore a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, his smile as fake as cheap dentures. Dr. Harper, my employer would like to discuss your recent activities regarding the association. I felt Duke tense beside me, his old body still ready to protect. Can Duke come? I asked, testing boundaries. Of course, my employer appreciates loyalty. The drive took us to a penthouse that screamed new money, all glass and sharp edges with no warmth. Miranda Sterling waited inside, a woman in her 40s with eyes like dental mirrors. They reflected everything and revealed nothing. Dr. Harper, do you understand how HOAs really make money? Miranda asked, gesturing to a chair while eyeing Duke with amusement. Fees and fines, I replied, playing dumb while noting the dental files scattered across her desk, hundreds of them, from neighborhoods across the country. Child's play, she laughed, a sound like breaking enamel. The association controls 2,000 HOAs nationwide. We don't just collect fees, we shape real estate markets, decide neighborhood demographics, and most importantly, we control the future of American communities. She leaned forward, her perfume unable to mask the scent of corruption. We're social engineers, doctor. We decide who belongs where. The offer came wrapped in silk-covered threats. You dismantled Margaret's operation impressively. Join us, and you'll control every HOA in Texas. $10 million annually, plus bonuses for special projects. I kept my face neutral, the same expression I used when patients told me they only flossed right before appointments. And if I refuse, Miranda's smile sharpened. Pine Ridge will face 100 simultaneous lawsuits. Our lawyers will find every possible violation, every tiny infraction. Your paradise will become a legal battlefield. Within 6 months, you'll be bankrupt or worse. She glanced meaningfully at Duke, who growled softly. 24 hours, doctor. Remember, cavities don't heal themselves. Sometimes extraction is the only option. Kevin worked through the night like a dental student before finals, his screens filling with data that made my blood run cold. Doc, this is insane. They control $400 billion in assets. The board of directors reads like a who's who of corruption. The names scrolled past like a list of dental disasters. Senator Bradley, who pushed through HOA-friendly legislation. Judge Morrison, who ensured HOAs won 95% of their cases. Tony Romano, whose construction companies mysteriously got all HOA contracts. "We can't fight this," Maria whispered, fear replacing her usual courage. But I thought about all the patients I'd treated over the years, the impossible cases everyone said couldn't be saved. In dentistry, when you face a tumor too big to extract directly, you don't give up. You shrink it first. Attack from unexpected angles. My plan was audacious, like proposing to rebuild an entire jaw from scratch. We don't fight the association head-on, we infiltrate, like fluoride strengthening teeth from within. The strategy required surgical precision. Pretend to join while gathering intel from inside, connect with other oppressed HOA communities nationwide, build a grassroots movement from within their own system, then use their own rules and connections to dismantle them. "This is beyond dangerous," Sam cautioned, his legal mind seeing all the pitfalls. "These people kill witnesses." But I thought of Emily, how she'd fought her cancer with intelligence and grace until the very end. Emily used to say that good dentists don't fear big challenges, they fear not being able to help their patients. Right now, we have 50 million patients suffering under the association's control. The next morning, Pine Ridge woke to legal warfare. 20 environmental lawsuits appeared overnight. 15 boundary disputes materialized from nowhere. 30 new residents filed complaints about everything from noise to property lines. My lawyers were overwhelmed, drowning in paperwork like a mouth full of broken teeth. "This is just the beginning," Miranda called, her voice dripping satisfaction. 18 hours to decide, doctor. Join us or watch everything you love disappear." But as I hung up, Margaret approached with something that changed everything. "I couldn't help overhearing," she said quietly. "I know things about the association. Robert was a member. They taught us their methods, supplied everything from legal strategies to other things." She handed me a USB drive with trembling hands. Robert kept records. Everything. I was too angry to see it before, but they used my pain to make me their weapon. They're doing it in thousands of neighborhoods. I want to help stop them. The USB contained dynamite, videos of secret meetings, financial records showing billions in theft, and most chilling, a list of 50 people who'd been handled for opposing the association. But the last file made my hands shake. Project Cleanup Phase 2, eliminate Dr. Benjamin Harper and all supporters. Method, staged accidents. Timeline, 48 hours. Duke whined anxiously as 10 black vans surrounded my house. The phone rang again. Miranda's voice had lost all pretense of civility. "Decision time, doctor. Join us or be removed, permanently." The war for Pine Ridge had just become a battle for survival. I stood at my window watching 10 black vans form a noose around my property, my mind racing like it did during emergency dental surgery. You had seconds to make the right decision, or someone could die. Duke pressed against my leg, sensing the danger that surrounded us like an abscess ready to burst. "Kevin, upload everything to FBI, media outlets, social media, now," I barked, my voice steady, despite the adrenaline flooding my system. "They'll block it," he protested, fingers already flying across his keyboard. "Not if we use a dead man switch. If I don't check in every hour, everything goes public automatically. Set it up." This was the most complex extraction I'd ever attempted, and failure meant more than just losing teeth. I made the call that would either save us or sign our death warrants. "Miranda, I'll join, but I have conditions." Her laugh was sharp as a dental pick. "You're surrounded by 40 armed professionals and you think you can negotiate?" But I had something she didn't know about. The USB from Margaret, Robert still in custody, and thousands of files documenting decades of crimes. I have Patricia as a living witness, Robert in jail ready to flip, and enough evidence to bury the association forever. So yes, I'm negotiating. Meet me face to face, you, me, and your entire board. If you want me to understand the association's vision, show me everything. The silence stretched like pulled taffy. "You're either very brave or very stupid, doctor." "I'm a dentist. We're trained to go deep when necessary." While waiting for her response, I transformed my home into a fortress of information. Rachel Stone received copies of everything, with instructions to break the story of the century. Sam connected with FBI colleagues who'd been hunting the association for years. Maria evacuated 50 families who might be targets. Kevin set up emergency live streams on 12 platforms. And Margaret, she prepared something special. "Dr. Harper," she handed me a small box with shaking hands. "This is a special anesthetic Robert taught me about. If needed, it can incapacitate enemies. I learned it from them. Now use it against them." Her redemption arc was like watching a severely damaged tooth heal against all odds. At midnight, they brought me to an abandoned office building that reeked of mold and malice. 20 people sat around a conference table, each representing billions in stolen money and destroyed lives. Senator Bradley sneered at me like I was a Medicaid patient in a Beverly Hills practice. Judge Morrison studied me with eyes that had perverted justice for profit. Tony Romano, the construction mogul who'd built an empire on HOA corruption, cracked his knuckles meaningfully. A small-time dentist thinks he can challenge us? Bradley laughed. We've destroyed senators, ruined judges, eliminated problems much bigger than you. I stood calm, Duke beside me despite their protests about bringing a dog. I'm here to make a deal. You leave Pine Ridge alone forever and I stay quiet. Naive fool, Romano growled. You've seen too much. You know our faces, our methods. But I smiled, the same smile I gave patients before revealing good news. Actually, I know much more than that. For instance, Senator Bradley, I know about the $50 million in bribes you've taken. Judge Morrison, those 12 murder cover-ups must weigh on you. And Tony, laundering $2 billion through fake HOA projects? That's impressive, even for organized crime. The room erupted as I pulled out my phone. Oh, and did I mention, this conversation is being live-streamed to 2.5 million viewers. Say hello to the world, gentlemen. Kevin had hacked their own security system, turning every camera in the building into our broadcast network. The trap I'd set was springing shut like properly aligned orthodontics. Chaos exploded like an abscessed tooth finally bursting. Tony pulled a gun, but 50 FBI agents stormed in before he could aim. Nobody move, this is the FBI. The takedown was beautiful in its precision. Years of investigation had led to this moment, and I'd provided the perfect bait. Miranda lunged at me with a knife, screaming about destroyed plans and ruined empires. But Duke, my loyal 10-year-old companion who struggled with stairs, found one last burst of energy. He launched himself between us, taking the blade meant for my throat. No, Duke! I caught him as he fell, blood spreading across his golden fur like spilled mouthwash. The next 2 hours blurred together like a patient under sedation. 20 board members arrested, 2,000 corrupt HOAs under investigation, $400 billion in assets frozen, thousands of victims finally getting justice. But all I could focus on was Duke in my arms, his breathing getting shallower. Good boy, Duke. The best boy, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. He looked at me one last time, tail giving a final weak wag, then licked my hand, the same gesture he'd made every day since Emily brought him home. At 11:47 p.m., his brave heart finally stopped. Even the hardened FBI agents paused their work, removing their caps in respect for a dog who'd saved more than just my life. In the courtroom weeks later, Miranda Sterling faced justice with Margaret Thornton as the star witness. I was like you once, Margaret testified, her voice strong and clear, angry, bitter, using power to hurt others. But Dr. Harper taught me something. Healing is possible for everyone. We just have to extract the infection of hate first. Miranda screamed about betrayal, but the evidence was overwhelming. 25 years in prison for her. Senator Bradley, Judge Morrison, and Tony Romano all facing life sentences. The association's century-long reign of terror was over, but the victory felt hollow without Duke beside me. At Pine Ridge, 500 people gathered for an unexpected celebration. Margaret, now my full-time clinic assistant, served pho to everyone, a recipe she'd learned from watching me. Dr. Harper, she said through tears, I'm sorry for everything. For the pain I caused, for Duke, for Emily. I didn't know they'd... I put my hand on her shoulder, the same comforting gesture I used with fearful patients. Margaret, we all deserve a chance at redemption. Emily would have wanted that. She believed in second chances. The community had transformed from a battlefield into a true neighborhood, where former enemies now worked together. That's when the FBI agent approached, with news that would change everything again. Dr. Harper, the association was just one branch of something bigger. The Order. They control 10,000 HOAs globally, and they're not happy about what you've done. We need your help. I looked at the celebrating crowd, at Margaret serving food with genuine joy, at the place where Duke had given his life for mine. I'm just a dentist, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true anymore. Duke's soft bark seemed to echo in the wind, as if saying we still had work to do. Because some infections run deeper than others, and someone has to be willing to extract them all the way to the root. 6 months after the association crumbled, Pine Ridge had become everything a neighborhood should be. My free dental clinic operated every Saturday, with Margaret greeting patients with genuine warmth that would have shocked anyone who knew her before. She'd gotten new dental implants, properly done this time, by yours truly, free of charge. "Next, please. We're here to give you the smile you deserve," she called out, her own smile finally pain-free after a decade of suffering. Duke's son, Duke Jr., lay patiently in the corner, already learning his father's gentle ways. The 1-year-old golden retriever had shown up at my door 3 months ago, the neighbor explaining that Duke had sired a litter just before I moved in. It felt like a gift from beyond. Rachel Stone burst through the clinic doors, her journalist instincts on high alert. "Dr. Harper, breaking news!" On the television, a stunning report unfolded. The Order, a secret organization controlling 10,000 HOAs worldwide, had just been exposed. The person who'd leaked the information? Me. Well, the evidence I'd gathered had led investigators down a rabbit hole deeper than any root canal. In related news, the anchor continued, the heroic dentist who exposed the association, Dr. Benjamin Harper from Pine Ridge, has become the symbol of community resistance against HOA corruption. I turned away from the TV, uncomfortable with heroic labels. Heroes didn't let their dogs die for them. A phone call shattered the moment. The number showed as international, the voice electronically distorted, but dripping with menace. "Dr. Harper, I'm Richard Crown, leader of the Order. You've just signed your death warrant, and that of everyone you care about." I felt the familiar pre-extraction tension, that moment before you commit to removing something deeply rooted. "Mr. Crown, is it? Well, I've got some bad news about your oral health. You've got a massive infection, and I'm about to extract it." His laugh was humorless. Brave words from a dead man. "You think the association was powerful? We control homeowners associations on 6 continents. We decide who lives where, who thrives, who disappears. But I'd learned something important. Bullies with paperwork were still just bullies." The Order's attack came swift and sophisticated. Within 48 hours, my clinic faced surprise inspections from agencies I'd never heard of. My bank accounts were frozen by computer errors that nobody could fix. Duke Jr. was accused of biting someone who didn't exist, with demands for immediate euthanasia. 20 former patients filed malpractice suits with identical wording. "This is just the beginning," Crown called again, his smugness oozing through the phone. "Surrender your evidence, publicly apologize for your lies, or lose everything." But I wasn't fighting alone anymore. My phone lit up with messages from dentists across the country who'd been watching, waiting for someone to stand up to the HOA mafia that had corrupted their communities too. What happened next still makes me smile. 500 dentists from every state united under a simple banner: Operation Root Canal, extracting corruption from America's neighborhoods. Dr. Williams from New York called me directly. "We've been watching you, Ben. The Order controls our profession through HOAs, deciding where we can practice, how much we can charge, who we can treat. Time to pull this infected tooth." Within days, our dental coalition had gathered evidence from thousands of communities. We live-streamed a 24-hour marathon, each dentist sharing their HOA horror stories. The hashtag #ExtractTheOrder went viral as millions realized they weren't alone in their suffering. Crown made his final mistake by escalating to violence. 100 hired thugs surrounded my clinic on a busy Saturday. Not mercenaries, but corrupt cops, bent inspectors, and paid-off officials. "Arrest warrant for Dr. Harper for practicing without proper licenses," they announced. But Sam Thompson stood ready with the state attorney general. "These warrants are fraudulent. Arrest them instead." The standoff intensified until FBI agents, who'd been investigating the Order for 5 years, made their move. I'd been the perfect bait to draw Crown out, though Duke paid the ultimate price for that strategy. The trial became a global sensation. I testified as the star witness, Crown sitting in the defendant's chair, still radiating arrogance. "You have no physical evidence," his lawyer smirked, but I pulled out something unexpected: a tooth. This molar belonged to Mr. Thompson. The Order had it pulled without anesthetic. As punishment for opposing them, DNA, fingerprints, and dental records all preserved. Then Margaret stood up. "I have 2,000 recordings Robert made of Order meetings. They planned Emily Harper's death, saying she was getting too close to the truth." The courtroom gasped. My wife hadn't just died of cancer. The Order had ensured she couldn't get proper treatment by manipulating her insurance through HOA connections. Kevin presented a chart showing the Order's web of corruption. 10,000 HOAs controlling 50 million families. $2 trillion in manipulated property values, systematic discrimination disguised as community standards, and 20,000 accidents that eliminated opposition. "But," Kevin smiled, "I hacked their main server. One click and all their crimes go public. He pressed enter. Around the world, order members' phones lit up with their own evidence being released. The digital extraction was complete. The judge delivered justice. The order was officially terminated. Crown died in the courtroom chaos he created trying to escape. 5,000 members arrested globally. Every corrupted HOA dissolved, and new laws passed protecting homeowners from association abuse. 1 year later, I sat in Pine Ridge's pet cemetery between two graves, Emily's memorial stone and Duke's actual resting place. Duke Jr. lay beside me, growing into his father's gentle spirit. "Emily, Duke, we did it. We extracted all the rot, right down to the roots." Margaret approached with fresh flowers, her transformation complete. "Dr. Harper, there's something you should know. Going through old files, I found this." She handed me a letter in Emily's handwriting, dated just before her death. My hands shook as I read. "My dearest Ben, if you're reading this, it means they got to me before I could finish my investigation. The order killed my access to treatment, but I kept fighting so you'd have the trail to follow. Don't mourn too long, my love. Fight them with the skills you have, a dentist's precision, patience, and determination to heal. I'll be watching over you. All my love, Emily." Pine Ridge now welcomed visitors with a sign that brought tears to my eyes. Pine Ridge, where smiles are free. No HOA, no fees, just neighbors. Dedicated to Duke, the bravest dog who ever lived. My clinic had expanded into the Duke and Emily Memorial Dental Center, treating HOA victims nationwide for free. Our motto, suggested by Margaret, we extract dental pain and social injustice because everyone deserves to smile. As I treated a scared child that afternoon, Duke Jr. did exactly what his father would have done. Rested his head on the child's lap until fear melted away. "See," I told the child as I prepared my tools, "nothing to fear when you have friends beside you." The camera slowly pulled back from our clinic, showing the thriving community beyond. In voiceover, my thoughts echoed. Sometimes the most beautiful smiles come from hearts that have known pain. As dentists, we don't just fix teeth, we restore hope, one extraction at a time. And that's the real miracle of our profession. Duke Jr. barked once, tail wagging, as if agreeing. The battle was won, the corruption extracted, and Pine Ridge smiled freely at last. In the end, love and courage had pulled out the deepest roots of evil. Emily and Duke would be proud.
BD Stories, turning everyday madness into entertainment gold. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Drama like this doesn't wait.